Welcome to the last video of 1d6 of 2024. In this video we're reviewing the best crowdfunding campaigns of 2024. We divided the year into months and we selected games that are worth mentioning. So let's start off with January. Crowdfunding for board games in 2024 started off slow. Of all crowdfunding campaigns, we've selected Conan. Publisher Monolith Games relaunched the popular game on Kickstarter. Conan is a one versus many, scenario-driven dungeon crawler full of strategy and adventure set in Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age. One player controls the Overlord, commanding enemies and traps, while others take on the roles of Conan and his allies, completing objectives through combat, exploration and clever resource management. The game features modular maps, detailed miniatures and an innovative energy gem system that balances action and stamina. Despite this being yet another campaign for Conan, Monolith Games raised over $3 million during this campaign.
Crowdfunding for board games started heating up in February. Based on our personal preferences, we've selected the best 3 board games. Starting off with a colorful and cute looking Flow from Pika Games. Flow is a sandbox-like board game where players embark on a heroic journey across the Iceberg Sea. The game combines exploration, resource management and engine building mechanics. Players use warmth and other resources to move, perform actions and purchase upgrades, with dynamic pricing influencing strategic decisions. Shifting points of interest on the map encourage players to stay adaptable. With multiple paths to victory, Flow offers a challenging and diverse gameplay experience. 1d6 did a video on Flow. You can watch it by clicking the link at the top of the screen. In February, Pika raised over 600,000 euros on Kickstarter. But in case you missed the campaign, you can still make a late pledge on GameFound.
A bit less cuddly compared to Flow is Dante's Inferno. Creative Games Studio LLC raised over $1.5 million for this grim cooperative boss battler based on Dante's Alighieri's Divine Comedy. Throughout the 9 layers of hell, players engage in epic boss battles. These battles offer an epic and cinematic experience. The gameplay is streamlined yet retains depth, making it more accessible than competitors like Kingdom Death Monster and Eon Trespass Odyssey. The 3D terrain gives a cinematic feel to the battles and ensure an impressive table presence. We made a video on Dante's Inferno 2, once again we'll put a link on the top of the screen. If you're interested in the game, there is still an opportunity to make a late pledge on GameFound.
Last but not least for February is EVE War for New Eden from Titan Forest Games. EVE War for New Eden brings the epic universe of EVE Online MMO to the tabletop, offering a 4X board game filled with diplomacy, deception and cosmic warfare. Players expand their empires by exploring uncharted solar systems, building economies and assembling powerful fleets of spaceships. The game's innovative combat system and modular map design promise thrilling battles and a streamlined experience, with multiple expansions adding to new adventures. EVE War for New Eden delivers an immersive galactic strategy experience straight from the box. Titan Forest Games raised over 600,000 euros on Kickstarter. I backed it and you can see why in this video right here by clicking it. If you're interested in a late pledge, you're in luck. As of today, the late pledge is still open on GameFound.
March was a little less action-packed compared to February, but nonetheless there were 2 really interesting titles that caught our attention. The first one is Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. Although we did not make a video on the GameFound campaign, we do like the game. Sleeping Gods Distant Skies is a standalone sequel to the board game hit of 2021, Sleeping Gods, and expands on the game and its mechanics. Sleeping Gods is an open world cooperative board game where 1 to 4 players explore a vast map. Gameplay revolves around free-form exploration, where players visit different locations, draw adventure cards and make choices that shape the story. The core mechanic include managing resources like health, food and damage, while gathering keywords and quest items to progress the campaign. Players engage in skill checks, tactical combat using a grid-based card system and leveling up crew members with unique abilities. The story unfolds through a narrative book, offering hundreds of branching events and quests. Red Raven Games raised over $2 million during the campaign for Sleeping Gods Distant Skies.
The second game we want to discuss for March is The Dead Keep from CMON Games. We did make a video about the game and the link is right at the top of the screen. The Dead Keep is a dungeon crawler inspired by Zombicide and Massive Darkness. It retains much of the simplicity of Zombicide while managing to incorporate some of the variety that Massive Darkness is known for. We think The Dead Keep is a solid dice-chucking dungeon crawler. There's no deep strategy or epic immersive story here, but it delivers straightforward, no-nonsense fun. We don't have the data on the total revenue CMON has earned from bringing this game to GameFound, as it was officially a pre-order rather than a crowdfunding campaign. However, we wouldn't be surprised if The Dead Keep turned out to be another blockbuster. If you're interested, you can still pre-order the game on GameFound.
In April, we saw another campaign for the Castles of Burgundy reprint on GameFound. Awakened Realms already did a campaign for the facelifted edition of the all-time classic back in May 2022, raising almost $3 million. And now the reprint raised another $4 million. Mind-blowing figures, but not without reason. You can check our video of Castles of Burgundy to check whether the reprint was necessary for this game.
The standout new game in April was God of War the board game. CMON took a bold risk by adapting the popular video game into a cooperative dungeon crawler. Whether CMON did a good job on God of War, you can find it out in my video right here. The result of the GameFound campaign was somewhat underwhelming, with CMON raising over $600,000, which was way less than we had expected.
Before we move on to May, I'd like to take a brief moment to reflect on the 1D6 channel and our performance in 2024. William and I created 39 videos, gained 47,000 views and achieved 2,300 hours of watch time, and welcomed 280 new subscribers. Despite still being a small channel, we're pleased with these results and are deeply grateful to everyone who has shown interest in our content. Your likes, comments and subscriptions truly motivate us to keep creating content about board games. Our goal is to remain a free and independent channel producing content to support our shared hobby. We're humbled that you have chosen to be a part of this journey and sincerely appreciate all the engagement with our channel. Now let's move on to May before we get too sentimental, but thank you, and thank you to all of our viewers.
Well, May was another strong month for board games. Reprints such as The Seventh Citadel and Dune War of Arrakis appeared on the crowdfunding platforms. But there were also two noteworthy new titles. The first is Awakened Realms Grim Coven. With the new IP, Awakened Realms ventured into the world of boss battlers. As the title suggests, the game is set in the grim Victorian world. 1 to 4 players take on the roles of hunters, battling a formidable adversary in a gameplay session lasting 2 to 3 hours. The game combines dice allocation mechanics with tactical combat on a modular board. During the game, players can gather lament to power up their abilities. However, accumulating too much lament might cause you to turn into a monster yourself. Although Grim Coven is Awakened Realms' first boss battler, they managed to raise over $4 million during the GameFound campaign. If you like to learn more about the game, you can watch my video and check it right here, and even check the late pledge options on GameFound.
The second noteworthy title was Euthia Cruel Frost. Youthia is not a new IP, but the Cruel Frost expansion was an unexpected continuation of the franchise. The original developer, Dia Games, discontinued their business after bringing Youthia Torment of Resurrection to life. They relaunched the campaign on GameFound in a desperate attempt to keep the company afloat, but unfortunately it didn't work out as intended. Steamforged Games resurrected the title and brought the Cruel Frost expansion to GameFound. Youthia is an RPG-like scenario-based sandbox game for 1 to 4 players, offering solo, competitive and cooperative modes. The primary objective is to earn victory points, with specific scenarios dictating how players can achieve this. Cruel Frost remains a deep and engaging experience, though its complexity and cost may deter casual players. You can watch our video on Youthia Cruel Frost by clicking the link on the top of the screen. The game did quite well on GameFound, raising over £1 million, and there is still an opportunity to make a late pledge on this game on GameFound.
June was the last good month for board games on the crowdfunding platforms before the calm of the summer season. Our most anticipated crowdfunding title for 2024 came to GameFound. CMON launched their campaign for The Genesis. The Genesis Clan Wars is a semi-cooperative one versus many tactical skirmish wargame with a branching story-driven campaign. Up to 4 players take on the roles of operatives while 1 player controls the enemy clans, creating an asymmetric dynamic. Each mission begins with a story briefing and the option for players to gather intel about the upcoming challenges. However, gathering intel comes at a cost, as it grants the hostile player Arcana cards that can be used against the operatives later. Gameplay revolves around competing mission objectives, such as scouting areas or defeating enemies by rolling dice. The game incorporates a push or luck mechanic, while players must decide how many dice to commit to actions. Playing it safe may waste valuable turns, while taking risks could lead to failed checks or penalties, like empowering the opposing enemy. Turns progress through an edge token system, where operatives take actions and pass the token to the hostile player, who can choose to react immediately or save tokens for a more impactful reaction later. You can watch our video on the Genesis, the link is in the top of the screen. CMON raised $339,000 with the GameFound campaign.
A game we cannot review objectively due to our involvement in the project is Rise of the Wastelands by Wolfhorn Games. We are friends with the developer and are deeply impressed by what Ruud Nederpelt has achieved with his company in such a short time. Rise of the Wastelands is the latest addition to the Wolfhorn's game catalog. The 4X game, set in a post-apocalyptic world, marks another leap forward in the company's professionalism. In the game, players take control of one of the 4 factions, each with unique abilities. During their turns, players perform various actions, which are limited by the number of action points available each round. These actions include exploring to gradually reveal the map, building outposts or structures, generating resources, researching upgrades, and more. The ultimate goal of the game is to accomplish achievements, which allow players to expand their influence over others. Players must also pay close attention to the support of their own people, as maintaining this is crucial. Additionally, conflicts and wars between factions are almost inevitable. We created a very special video about Rise of the Wastelands, which you can check by clicking the link above my head. During its Kickstarter campaign, Wolfhorn Games raised over €47,000, and you can still pre-order the game on BackerKit.
Now let's quickly dive into July. We never made a video about CMON's Marvel DC Heroes United. This isn't because the game sucks, it is because it's not up in our alley. We do enjoy boss battlers, but it being a Marvel-like board game doesn't really warm us up. It might even be an American thing instead of a European thing, so try not to judge us too hard. The core of this game revolves around players trying to beat up the Marvel boss. They try to team up and get its goons to weaken it, but if the pressure gets too high, the boss might respond unexpectedly. players need to try and defeat the boss before it wreaks havoc in the city. Marvel DC feels compact and light thanks to the card system and the limited number of plastic on the board. To us, it feels like the best this series has to offer in a compact way. We are very interested in the Toburu board game system and have made several videos on the Toburu platform and its games. If you're unfamiliar with the Toburu, you should definitely check out Frank's video with an explanation on the system. The lack of real system sellers prevented us from backing any Toburu campaigns so far. Unfortunately, Vampire the Masquerade Milan Uprising is no exception. The gameplay revolves around storytelling, choices and cooperation. Players use the app to guide their actions, which adapts to the narrative based on the decisions. Each character has unique abilities and motivations, encouraging strategic teamwork to achieve personal and collective goals. The game blends exploration, resource management and social manipulation as players navigate missions, interact with NPCs and manage their bloodthirst without breaking the masquerade. For more information on the game, you can check out our preview by clicking the link in the top of the screen. Vampire the Masquerade Milan Uprising raised over 1 million euros and is still late pledgeable via Curse of the Cthulhu campaign from the Toburu on GameFound. We'll discuss the Curse of Cthulhu later on in this video.
In August we saw a campaign for Thunderstone Quest Uncharted Waters. We never made a video about this game, but the game was in my personal collection. Thunderstone was able to make it to our table 2 times, but it never really stuck with us. In Thunderstone Quest Uncharted Waters, players are able to get new quests in a new scenario. You were able to get an all-in pledge with 14 expansions plus the core box for $499 versus the retail price of $649. I don't think you should have pledged for this game, but oh my god, that is a lot of content.
So, what did we back ourselves?
Well, if we're not specific to 2024, we have a lot of open campaigns or open deliveries, that is. Not in a particular order, but I'm waiting for Earthborn Rangers, which I've backed.
Well, we already talked about Eve War for New Eden, but I'm waiting for that game.
I late pledged Kings of Rune, Tainted Grail, that is.
I'm waiting for an expansion of Scarface 1920.
And I was very positive about the Dead Keep, so I've pledged for that game as well.
I am waiting for Ra, the game we are talking about next on this list.
I've backed Beast Shattered Isle.
I am waiting for Silvercoin Age of Monster Hunters.
And a bit less impressive, but I've also backed Stars of Acarios, but just for the upgrade pack, because I already own the game.
Yeah, I think I'm done.
You're done? Oh, well, I had another upgrade pack, but that was for Bardsong. There was a standalone campaign this year, but I also backed just for the upgrade pack. So quite a lot of content actually, and of course we're gonna cover it on the channel once it arrives at the doorsteps.
Sure, so let's continue the video right now.
In September, William made a short video about Ra. Ra is a board game that was originally released back in 1999. For a long time it was hard to come by, and that is why it got a re-release in 2022 on GameFound and again in 2024, this time on Kickstarter. Ra is a typical push your luck game. Players can draw tiles from a bag, placing them on the central board. Players can also choose to invoke Ra to start an auction. Players use their sun discs to make a bid. The highest bid gets to take all of the tiles from the center. These tiles can be used to collect sets to gather victory points, but disaster tiles can also be drawn, and you want to avoid these as much as possible. The winning bid loses its sundisk and get the sundisk that is stored in the center board. This is also something to keep in mind because lower sundisks can be placed here, so you might have a hard time winning upcoming auctions. Ra has 3 rounds in which you can score victory points. Certain tracks score each round while others score only round 2 or 3. Ra is a great and easy game to teach and set up. The game is also relatively cheap at only $40. At this time you can still late pledge the game.
Puerto Rico Special Edition. We also made a video about this game. In short, Puerto Rico is a really fun game. If you have cash to burn, you should get the new version from Awaken Realms. Late pledge is still available. If you don't have the cash to burn, the old retail version is your friend. Sure, it's not that fancy, but it works and it's cheap. The objective of Puerto Rico is to get the most victory point. Victory points are earned by shipping off your goods and having buildings. To be able to ship your wares, you need to plant and harvest them. For this, you need workers. If your plantations and production buildings are staffed, you are able to get rolling. Puerto Rico revolves around action selection. One player chooses an action for all the players, and the choosing player gets a bonus. This action can be to harvest, plant, sail, or build, or many other options. Your prime goal is to choose a role that doesn't help your opponents too much. Puerto Rico is pretty fast and playable for 1 to 5 players.
The last game I want to touch upon for September is Barrage. There was an expansion for the already legendary game of Barrage. Barrage is a game that keeps blinking on our radar. We might pick it up someday, but with games like Brass and Carnegie already in our collection, it might never see our table. That is a shame because Barrage is a very solid game. Barrage is an economic game that focuses around water management. On the map are several waterways and places to build dams. By constructing buildings to reroute the water, you'll be able to take the water your opponent was harvesting. Water is needed to turn the generators in your dams. By placing workers in the right spots, you'll be able to take out managing the competition. Barrage is a cutthroat worker placement game, and with the legendary box you can get everything at once for the price of €279, excluding VAT and shipping.
So, on to October. Here we find a video of Frank about the bad karmas and the curse of Cthulhu. And let's just say not everyone agreed. Though some errors were made in the script, I believe Frank does have the correct conclusion. The bad karmas and the curse of Cthulhu won't be the system seller the Toburu needs. The game isn't bad, but at least for us, if you're looking at the game as it is, we would not buy it as a genuine board game, even with the Toburu. Again, that isn't to say it's a bad game, it's just not up for us. But you might enjoy it. The Bad Karmas Curse of Cthulhu introduces new monsters, characters, and the madness mechanic. But these changes are minor and don't significantly innovate the genre. The game's standout feature, the Toburu system, a board game console that tracks miniatures, simulates dynamic monster behavior, and uses LED lighting for strategic gameplay elements. While the Toburu adds a layer of depth, it isn't groundbreaking. The gameplay is simple and arcade-like, focusing on quick action rather than long build-up. The Toburu system enhances the experience by making monster actions less predictable, but the core mechanic remains conventional. Replayability is one of its strengths, with 18 monsters, unlockable actions, and a scenario editor for creating custom missions. Quick setup and easy onboarding makes it inviting to new players.
Bardsung Tale of the Forsaken Glade is a dungeon crawling campaign for 1 to 5 players, blending familiar genre elements with some unique features. Its quick and light setup make it accessible, but saving progress can be inconvenient. Characters are unremarkable, and the modular dungeon design, using map cards, stand out as its most original aspect. The wandering monster mechanic adds unpredictability and remains a standout feature in board games. Gameplay involves a shuffled marching order, ability activation, and dice rolls influenced by character stats and the Bardsung resource. Combat includes critical hits, escalating enemies, and variable encounters, but grinding for rewards can feel repetitive. While the design is functional, with the mixed quality minis and clear art, it suffers from a lack of variety and inconsistencies. Freestyle dungeon setup adds replayability initially, but limited tile variety reduces a long-term appeal. Character progression and storytelling are limited, reminiscent of Gloomhaven, and gameplay can feel grind-heavy. The updated Tales of the Forsaken Glade improves on the originality with new mechanics, strategic ability cards and better enemy variety, but still operates within the constraints of the base game.
So in the darkness of November, we found the Lands of Evershade campaign, which launched on GameFound on the 14th of November 2024 with pledge levels starting at $79 for the standard edition, $119 for the deluxe edition, plus premium upgrades like acrylic tokens for a total of $219. It offers a streamlined adaptation of a D&D style RPG, focusing on character building, branching narratives, skill checks and tactical combat, but lacks heavy roleplay and a dungeon master. The game unfolds in a modular world protected by the divine Luada, featuring bite-sized campaigns of 10 to 15 hours. Written by Krzysztof Piskorski, it combines storytelling with exploration, supported by striking artwork and impressive miniatures in the deluxe version. Replayability is high, with multiple races, characters and branching paths alongside mechanics like dice checks and skill-based challenges. Scenarios range from combat and puzzles to chases, keeping gameplay varied but heavily reliant on dice outcomes. Concerns about card play durability make optional acrylic and sleeved upgrades appealing. While praised for making RPG mechanics accessible, some question the game's long-term appeal and individual scenario strength compared to titles like Tainted Grail. It's an attractive entry point for newcomers to campaign games, but veteran players may find it lacks innovation. Frank remains undecided and is open for your feedback whether he needs to back it out or not.
Set in the world of Voidfall, Mindclash Game has made a new board game. It still looks like a Mindclash game, but it doesn't require you to study the rulebook for the entire evening. Revenant is a worker placement game in which you need to gather victory points by defending your ship against the Voidborn. Level your captain and build up your fleet to withstand the pressure as long as possible. But if you believe you're unable to withstand the next wave, you can make a run for it and see if you quit it in time or too fast. Revenant is a worker placement game that is doing something different, and it gives you something else to consider instead of just looking at a round tracker.
Next on the list is World Order. This game is a great looking game made by Hegemonic Games. The game also has a lot of resemblance to Hegemony. We did not back World Order, though it is somewhat more easygoing than Hegemony. For a large part of the board gaming world, this game would be too tough a nut to crack. That wasn't our beef with the game. No, I believe Hegemony is the better fit in our player group, but if you are interested in a board game that has its roots based on data instead of fantasy, you should definitely try and take a look at World Order. The game revolves around world dominance. By playing Russia, the US, China or the EU and building up alliances, some countries are bound not to be your ally, while others are already knocking at your door and willing to share their resources. Dominating the world with hard or soft power, World Order tries to show you how the real world sadly works. It's for 2 to 4 players, but the best experience is with 4 players. As of writing this script, you can still late pledge World Order for as little as €55.
In December we saw a campaign for Enormity, a board game that is made by Into the Unknown, the creator of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Where Aeon is set in mythology, Enormity is set in the future, or let me rephrase that, in the sci-fi future. Enormity is just like Aeon Trespass Odyssey, not for the faint of heart. The setup and components of this game might be a bit too much at first, yet if you're able to look past that and acknowledge that this game needs its fluff to rise it beyond other games, at the end of the day it all connects, every component has its place. It's a tough nut to crack, but once cracked, the fruits are heavenly. Enormity is again a giant boss battler and it looks stunning.
So, last but not least, Cthulhu Death May Die Forbidden Reaches. Another big title that you might like is Cthulhu Death May Die. We didn't make a video on this game because we weren't not really into the whole Cthulhu thing. Cthulhu Death May Die is a cooperative board game where players take on the roles of investigators trying to stop a ritual that summons Cthulhu or other great old ones. The gameplay focuses on fast-paced combat and strategic teamwork. Each scenario features unique objectives, environments and challenges. Players must disrupt the ritual while battling hordes of cultists and monsters. As the game progresses, investigators gain insanity levels, unlocking powerful abilities but inching closer to madness. Once the ritual is disturbed, the summoned Great Old One becomes vulnerable and players must work together to defeat it before they succumb to death or insanity. The game blends thematic storytelling with high-stakes action, making every session tense and engaging. Forbidden Reaches is an expansion in the Cthulhu Death May Die franchise. This expansion raised almost $4 million and is still available for a late pledge on GameFound.
So let's end the video with our FOMO top 3, and for my number 3 I'm already cheating on my own top 3. That's a game that wasn't released on the crowdfunding campaigns this year, but it's such a good game and William is still waiting for the delivery, and that is Food Chain Magnate. I think this is an all-time classic and they just brought it in a new fresh design. I think it's truly one of your upcoming gems in your collection. So that's my third title on the FOMO top 3.
Sure, mine is World Order. Why? I am such a fan of Hegemony and I think World Order is also a great game. That is why it is on my FOMO list, because I really want to have it, but I just don't think it would hit the table as often as Hegemony would.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so my second title, that is a game that was on the crowdfunding campaigns in 2024, and that is Barrage. Of course, this is also an all-time classic, and we're constantly discussing about this game. Should we get it? Should we, or do we have a lot of other games in this genre?
Should we get rid of another game? Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm undecided, but I'm still interested in the game, to be frank.
Sure, Frank. For me, I have a FOMO which I have regrets about.
And that is?
And that is actually expansion of Scarface 9 and 20. I was really hoping that with buying the expansion, the game would hit the table more often. Mm-hmm. And I dived into it thinking, yeah, I really like the feel of Scarface and I really want to enjoy that game. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's going into, well, I'll open the box, I'll do an unboxing, and then it might just all go on Craigslist.
Yeah, okay, so, okay, that's a good decision, I think, for your top 2. Mine is pretty obvious because I've already talked about it in our latest videos, and that's of course Evershade. Awakened Realms makes great games, has a top-notch production. I think Evershade is a fine game, but the innovation isn't quite there. I'm still undecided, still pondering what to do, but for now I haven't backed the game yet.
Well, my first one, or my number 1, would be a game that you have in your collection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's... I would say, in my opinion, it would be Castles of Burgundy. I wouldn't buy it because Frank has it, but I do have a tendency to buy games that are already in our collection just because I want to look at them or play at them. Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know why, but sure, with someone isn't of the player group there that owns the game, which so almost never really happens, but
no, it doesn't.
I just really like the game, and I do feel I am missing out on a fantastic looking board game.
Okay, well, that's a great compliment for my collection.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about you.
Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. These were our picks for 2024, but
Yep.
of course we're very curious about your picks for 2024. Did we miss anything, or did we have a wrong decision in here? Didn't you like any games on our list? Please let us know down in the comments. And while you're at it, give a thumbs up and even consider subscribing.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
In the next year.